Hey, Lowco sports fans, welcome to a special edition of the Lowco Pigskin Preview. I'm Wes Kerr. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you, and we have a great show for you today as we get ready for Beaufort High's 3A Lower State Championship clash at Dillon. The 11-1 Eagles facing the unbeaten 13-0 Wildcats, and we have everything to get you ready for Friday night. We'll be joined by my Prep RedZone colleague Chris Dearing to preview the matchup, and then we'll sit down with head coach Bryce Lybrand of Beaufort High ahead of Friday night showdown. The Eagles rallied past Gilbert at home 31-21 to reach their second straight lower state title game thanks to a pair of rushing touchdowns from Casey Fields and an electric kickoff return from Colton Ferries. They'll have to be at their best on Friday against a Dillon team that is strong and physical up front and has been battle-tested against some quality South Carolina squads with wins over Hartsville, Socastee, and most recently Camden to make it back to the state's Final Four. What will be the keys for the Eagles to knock off the Wildcats? Let's bring Chris Dearing in for more on a Lowco Pigskin Preview. All right, welcome back. I'm joined with fellow Prep RedZone correspondent Chris Dearing. And Chris, I hope you're doing well. Happy Thanksgiving. And we're here to talk about a big-time South Carolina High School League 3A state playoff game. We are in the lower state championship. And our very own Beaufort Eagles coming off a very hard-fought win over Gilbert at home. And now they will take to the road to face a very good Dillon team, still unbeaten on the season. And Chris, this is the makings of a fantastic lower state title game with Beaufort's terrific defense in that run game of Casey Fields against an absolute loaded Dillon squad, especially up front. Tell me your initial thoughts on what should be a great matchup on Friday night for the lower state title.
Well, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to you, Wes, and thanks for having me on this morning. Yeah, I mean, this weekend is going to be really special for these kids. I promote all the time. You get to practice on Thanksgiving morning, and that's big time, man. I played high school sports in this state, and if you get to practice on Thanksgiving, that means you're one of the top teams in this state. And both Beaufort and Dillon have proved that this year. I think it's sort of very similar styles going into this game. Both rely heavily on the running game, and both play really, really good defense. Are good up front. So I think they're very similar in a lot of ways. And Dillon, if you look down the roster, some of their main guys are really, really young. The quarterback is a freshman. One of their main running backs is a sophomore. So they got some guys that really haven't been in this situation before. And Dillon, our Beaufort, obviously is coming off a state championship run last year. Casey Fields was there then. So a lot of these guys have been in this situation, a little more experience. So it should be a really good matchup on Friday night.
Yeah, I think there's something to say about playoff experience and what that means when you get deep into the postseason. And we saw what Beaufort did last year, getting past Myrtle Beach on the road. I think that was a huge game to win for their in terms of maturity factor and just their ability to go out on the road and win big postseason games. And, with the experience coming back of a lot of the guys, you don't have Casey or you don't have Tyler Haley from your quarterback from last year. We do return Casey Fields, a bunch of others, especially on defense with Carter Bowersox and Colton Ferries. And definitely we'll get to the Ferries later because he's had a tremendous season for the Beaufort Eagles. But yeah, the experience of that Beaufort roster and all those guys coming back who have shown that they've done it before, winning big playoff games in a row. I think there is something to say about that. But yeah, practicing on Thanksgiving, that is the mark of an elite high school football program here in South Carolina. And that's certainly a privilege to do that, and certainly well earned for both Dillon and Beaufort and all these other Final Four teams in the state. But I'm very excited. Tell me more about this Dillon Wildcat team coming in unbeaten. And you mentioned a couple young players, but really solid up front and looking like going to be a tough test for Beaufort.
Yeah, you look across the landscape of South Carolina football for the last, decade to 15 years, and Dillon's in the conversation, probably with Dutch Fork and Abbeville as being one of the top programs. They've not won a state championship, I think, since 2017, and for these Dillon people, that seems like a very long time. They've won 7 since 2008, but have not won one since 2017. So, they're itching to get back and get another one, and they do have the players in place. Like I say, they're young. The quarterback is a freshman, Josiah Oxendine, and he's played well this year. They don't ask the quarterback to go out and win a lot of games at Dillon. They just got to run their offense and don't make mistakes, and he's done that. He's got 2 really good backs, and of Chris McCallum and Ty Martin. They've carried this team offensively on the running game. So those guys are really good. They're good up front. They're big up front. They get behind those linemen and run very well. And then Oxenai can throw it when needed. It's not like he cannot sit in the pocket and hit up in the receiver, but that's not what they really want him to do. Just run the offense and get it to those playmakers. And then you mentioned on defensively, they're really big up front. They got a kid, Anthony, what's his name? Anthony Grant that's up front. He's hard to block. He's really, really good. Shermod McCallum, he's got over 100 tackles on the season. Secondary, they play very well in the secondary. It's going to be a real challenge for this Beaufort team to get on the bus and travel to really the length of the state, really, and get off and play that Dillon team. It's could be that crowds could be there. I hope Beaufort's got a large crowd deciding to go on the road as well. So that should be a great atmosphere. But again, these Dillon people are hungry. They're used to winning. They lost in the lower state finals in 2018 and 2019. They hadn't been back. They lost last year to Camden. I'm sorry, they did lose last year to Camden. So they're wanting to get back, and this is a program that is used to doing that. And I think, like I said, we just talked about the experience of Beaufort. Some of these kids have not experienced this for Dillon, but they know. I guarantee you, these kids know from the time they 5, 6, 7 years old, they know the tradition of Dillon football, and they want to carry that tradition on and make their own mark.
Certainly a strong pedigree and lots of rich tradition over here at Dillon, and always a tough place to play. A great football environment, and just really challenging for the road team to come out on top. And those fans should be wild, and they should have a good Beaufort contingent of fans trapping as well. I think we got a spirit bus for some students coming up, and a lot of parents. And we Beaufort is a great fan base, and we've seen it all year long. The Kirkland Crazies, and they travel well on the road, so it should be two outstanding fan bases at Dillon, and they'll be cheering their teams on. So it should be an outstanding, amazing atmosphere for a lower state championship game on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. I mean, there's nothing better than that as a high school football fan. So really excited to cover this one remotely. We will have some correspondence here from Lowco Sports at the game, but we will cover it from our homes, myself and Justin Jarrett, and really excited to do that. But yeah, I'm definitely intrigued, and I think there are some similarities between both teams. When you mentioned the rushing attack, I think Beaufort has really relied on that with Casey Fields for most of the year. When Casey Fields, going back to earlier in his career, he was kind of playing a couple different positions, mostly out at wide receiver. But Bryce Lybrand moved him to running back, and he has been an absolute sensation. I mean, he's been averaging, it seems like it's been all 150, 200-yard games. I mean, it's been insane. And Fields with that clinching run to put away Gilbert there at the end, another big night for Fields. And really, he has become the heart and soul of this offense and this ground attack. So I think if you want to see Beaufort have success, I think it definitely starts establishing that run game with Fields and getting that strong production from the offensive line, although that will be a very difficult challenge in and of itself against that Gilbert front. But then you look at another person who can make an impact, and Samari Bonds, who we begin to talk a little bit more of in terms of his ability to throw the football and manage the game. I mean, certainly it was a big loss to let go of a guy like Tyler Haley. He graduated last year, sensation, the quarterback. But Samari Bonds has really done a good job stepping into his role. He's become more of a passer, a run first guy, and he'll take advantage. If he sees a seam, he'll charge forward, and he's got some good legs and good quickness on the ground. But he's really started to make some good reads, throw the football when he needs to, and had a nice downfield pass in that Gilbert game, and really like the way he's improved and could be a big time X factor in this game if he gets going and makes some big time throws for the Beaufort Eagles.
Yeah, I know 2 weeks ago he went down late in that game with I think it was a lower leg injury, but he came back last week against a really good Gilbert team. I'm based out of Columbia and seen Gilbert I think twice this year, so that was a really nice win for Beaufort. I'll tell you, Gilbert came into that game with two running backs over 1,500 yards each. So very similar to Dillon in a lot of ways. So it's not like this is not something Beaufort has already seen. So that probably helped a little bit. And like I said, getting Bonds back, we talk about Casey Fields so much, but Bonds might be the one he might be the X factor, like you said, the catalyst that drives the bus and gets things done. So he's going to be a big factor Friday night, obviously, and he's probably going to have to throw the ball down the field a little bit to open things up for him and Fields because Bonds can run it as well. It's not like he can't use his legs and get yardage. So that's going to be an interesting aspect of what he can do to get that offense going and in gear. And, neither team's really given up a lot of points this year. So, but I do think in this game, you're going to have to get upper 20s, maybe even into the 30s to maybe win it because both offenses are that good.
Yeah, I mean, exposed talent across the board. When you look at both these offenses, I think both teams are going to find a way to put points on the board. And can the Eagles find a way to keep up with their stars, with Colton Ferries and then Samari Bonds and then Casey Fields? And, Beaufort, a very strong season, had that one loss early in the year, first game of the year at Fort Dorchester. And Bond was really thrown into the fire against a very good Fort D team. And, I think that kind of grew him a little bit going against a really solid 5A team to begin the year. And I think from that point on, he's really grown to really understand this offense. First full year as the starter. And I think he's really hitting the ground running and making some good reads and good decisions with football. And I think the sky's the limit for what he can do going forward. Obviously, this is going to be a very tough test for him and the biggest game that he's had to play so far as a starter for this Beaufort High team. And I think it's going to come down to what happens up front and can Bonds make some good decisions early on, establish that run game. Casey Fields get going and find a way to put some production up offensively. But when you think of Beaufort this year, I think the defense has been a big story as well. Really, the emergence of the secondary and Colton Ferries has been a huge part of that. But Lamar and Jamar Knight have been breakout stars, especially Lamar had that tip pass on that game-clinching interception by Ferries in the win over Gilbert. And then Will Cotty, another guy who I mentioned, who has been a stud linebacker alongside Carter Bowersox, who brings a lot of veteran leadership. And, they've lost a couple guys, both up front on the line and in the secondary. But, this is a true 11-man squad. Everybody knows what their role is, and they accomplish their role. And, it speaks to the terrific head coach, Bryce Lybrand, who's now picked up 3 region titles in 4 years and then had that trip to the state championship game. So I think it really all starts with the culture that Lybrand has instilled. And that defense has been playing lights out this year. Colton Ferries, absolute athlete, and he was the spark that the Eagles needed in that game against Gilbert. Returned the kickoff to the house to take the lead, and Beaufort that just provided a huge spark to them, and they kind of rode the momentum the rest of the way. But Colton Ferries, I mean, you talk about a game wrecker and a game changer out there, and he has been one in a huge way for the Beaufort Eagles and committed to App State.
Again, he does a little bit of everything. Like I said, he returned a kick against Gilbert. He plays some offense for Beaufort. And, a 6'2", 185-pound safety is a pretty big guy back there in the secondary that can make plays and do a lot of things. And, I've not seen him in person. I've watched some of his huddle highlights, though, and really impressive kid. Like I said, he's an App State commit. So that means, he can play. There's no question about it. Just looking at this Beaufort team from a distance, if I had to pick a leader on defense, that's who I would pick. But you mentioned Lamar Knight's been really good. The Will Conley has been really good. And they like you mentioned, they play as a unit. There's 11 guys out there with one mission, and they get to the football. They gang tackle, and one of the keys I think, and this is at any level of football you play, is miss tackles. If you don't miss tackles and yards after catch and yards after contact, if you can limit those across the board, you probably going to win the football game. And that's a big key is, don't get in a position where you can make the tackle and you miss, or the guy does something, to make you miss. You keep the person in front of you, make tackles, and, I think one of my frustrating things watching football is see how many kids miss tackles and don't get in good position and want to deliver the big hit and don't use fundamentals. And I think this Beaufort team, like you said, Coach Lybrand's done really good with this program, and they've bought into it, and they have really good fundamentals from what I've seen on film. And I think that's going to help them against this, like I said, against this really good Dillon offense.
Yeah, Beaufort's defense has really been a big story of this team and has played lights out so far when they needed to. Certainly have had to overcome some challenges, especially in that Crestwood game where they got beaten the secondary a couple times, but made some adjustments and got some stops and got the offense going as well. But, I think a big factor, it's all about surviving and advancing the postseason. And I think a team that can kind of make adjustments on the fly when you take that punch, find a way to get off the mat and get going and play to your strengths. And I think Beaufort has really done an exemplary job of that. You look back at Crestwood down 14 points early against Gilbert, down early as well and to the Indians, and that's what it takes to have a championship team and to find success in the playoffs. I got to find a way to make adjustments and just bounce back when the ball doesn't bounce your way or when some plays just don't go in your favor. And I got to think Bryce Lybrand and his team now is accustomed to that. And I don't think you can count this team out based on just the resiliency and their tenacity on the field as we get ready for this Dillon game.
Well, and Wes, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Crestwood scored 42 points in that game, and I guess it was the second round. No offense to Oxendine, but he's not the caliber of quarterback that the Martin kid from Crestwood is. He's really good, and so that was a little bit of a struggle. It was, like I said, that game turned into a shootout between those two, but I do think, again, you probably won't see that type of game because that's just not the type of offense that Dillon runs. But ball control, don't let kids break tackles. Don't let Martin and McCallum, get through the line of scrimmage and take one to the house from 60, 70 yards. I think that'll be key in this game. Another thing that we have not mentioned yet, and it hadn't happened so much in the playoffs, but Dillon's had some games where there's been a running clock in the second half. Not sure how many games like that Beaufort's had, but another thing when you get in the playoffs and you got to play 4 full quarters, sometimes it makes a difference. Teams aren't used to doing that. They hadn't been challenged a lot, in the regular season, and you get them into a fourth quarter game, and they're like, "Oh man, we hadn't been here yet this year," and they got to try to figure it out. And so that'll be a key. One of the things I say every week, whichever game I go to, or watching college football, make me care in the fourth quarter. Make me want to play in the fourth quarter, and I think this game will get into the fourth quarter. Beaufort had the challenge last week against Gilbert. They were losing going into the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken, and had to score twice and come back and win that. So they know what it's like to be behind. And maybe if you can get this Dillon team behind, they hadn't played from behind. They don't know what that's like. So you never know. You still, at the end of the day, you're dealing with 16, 17-year-old kids, and you don't know how they were going to react when you put them in that type of pressure situation.
Yeah, I think taking the lead on the road would be absolutely huge. If you can get a big stop on defense or find a way to grind a drive early, that could be enormous to taking that lead and putting some pressure on Dillon, which I think are the favorites here at home in this lower state final. But it's definitely a challenge for Beaufort. They're going to have to play a very strong game. Defense is going to have to make some stops, and that run game of Casey Fields, and if the defense can put pressure on that freshman quarterback and stop the run, because we've seen some up and down performances from the run game against Gilbert, but in that second half, I thought they did a very good job stopping those two potent backs from Gilbert, and I think when they did that, they're really able to limit what Gilbert could do, and we'll see what Beaufort can do to put pressure on that young Dillon quarterback as we get further on in this game. So I think the defense will be key for the Eagles, and I really think it all starts up front with the offense and Casey Fields. But going to be a very tough challenge for Beaufort against the Dillon team with a lot of history on their side and really very strong up front. And just always a tough place to play to go out on the road to take on a squad like this, who's going to have a great fan base and great support and a really well coached team. So I'm excited. I think it's going to go down to the wire. And Beaufort has had some experience of playing some close games in the regular season. They were tested against May River, a rival now out of the region. Won that 13-7. Won a 6-0 game against Goose Creek. So they've had some fights late in ball games in the regular season, and they've just found ways to win. And when you can find ways to win, find a way late in a ball game like that, I think it says something to your team, says something to the group about your resiliency, how you just find a way to keep that on every play, and something you can translate even to these difficult games that we need to play. Somebody's ready to make it happen. So it's definitely, I do think Dillon is a favorite in this game, especially with their strengths up front and that run game. But I think Beaufort can find a way to match that. But going to take some hard work from that offensive line to open up some holes from Casey Fields, and that defense is going to have to dig in, stay disciplined, make some stops, and like I said, force Dillon to get uncomfortable. And if he can do that, get that lead early and find a way to control the ball, could be a tough night, and a very good ball game among both ways. So
I totally agree. You mentioned something just a second ago about Beaufort has played in a lot of close games, and that's probably goes back to what Coach Lybrand has built there. Those kids believe, and they think, nothing they can't overcome, and that's big in a high school football program when you can instill that in these kids because, again, I'm based out of Columbia. I see it with Dutch Fork. Dutch Fork might not always be the most talented team, but those kids believe, and they might be up a touchdown or 14 points before the game even starts just by their confidence level. And like I said, that Beaufort team is they could go to Dillon. Like I said, I went there a couple years ago to cover a playoff game, and I'll go ahead and tell you, if you're heading up there, that they could have the grills out. They could be out there early because most people don't work on Friday. It's gonna be a big crowd, and they could be loud. They could be intimidating, and it was I had been to Dillon in a number of years till I went, like I say, just 2 or 3 years ago, and that was a great experience just to go and cover a game there, and so I can't imagine going and playing one there. So this could be a great atmosphere for Beaufort to go into. I'm sure they had one down last week when Gilbert came down. So nothing new for these guys. And, last year I saw Beaufort in the state title game against South Point, and it was a big crowd there that night. And again, I can't say enough about what Coach Lybrand's done with this program because way back in the day, I did play against Beaufort when I was growing up. I played at Berkeley, and Beaufort was one of our teams in the region, actually. And so, they've always been hard-nosed, tough football players, and that made it maybe disappeared for a little bit, but I think it's back now, and Coach Lybrand's got that instilled in these guys, and so hopefully, this could be a good game. I know last week I talked about everything looked good on paper last week, but then we ended up having blowouts. And looking across the games this week, I think, again, everything looks really good on paper. Let's hope we have some closer games this week. There's only 10 across the state this week, so let's hope we have some close ones. And I do think that this Beaufort Dillon game can be a real close one.
Yeah, if your game's on the schedule, but everyone means so much more, and I think all of them should be competitive and fun to watch as we get closer, 1 week away from the state championship weekend over at Benedict College. And speaking of that, let's take a quick preview to the other side of the bracket, the upper state final between Pattersville, who stunned Daniel on that 2-point try to win it, and then Clinton taking out Chapman. So sets up a upper state matchup between Pattersville and Clinton. Just your initial thoughts on that, and then who you think is favored to meet the winner of Dillon Beaufort in next week's final.
Well, I mean, I think you look at that game, and one of the close games last week was that Pattersville game. It came down to a 2-point conversion at the end. Gutsy call to go for the win in that situation, but don't obviously that ended up being the right call, and Powdersville's they've been good for a couple of years now, but they just hadn't been able to beat Daniel. So to get over that hump is a big step for them. And then this Clinton team, they got the Bryson James kid. He's really good. He's a Mr. Football finalist. So that's going to be a really competitive game. Again, Powdersville probably wants to throw it around a little bit more than Clinton does, but Clinton wants to get up there and run the football and be physical with them. And that's going to be a good game. Like I said, there's not a game across the state this week that I'm not, I'll be at a game covering one, but I'm going to have my eye on the rest of the state to see how these things are coming along. And definitely Clinton and Powdersville could be one of those ones along with Beaufort and Dillon.
I think it's wide open for any four of these teams to find a way and win this title. I don't think there's one clear team that's head and shoulders above the rest. I think all four of these teams have shown that they're strong on both sides of the ball and have the talent to go the rest of the way. So I think it's wide open. I think any of these four teams have the skill to make it happen and win a state title. So really excited to see how things go this weekend. And before I let you go, just tell me about how you think this game will be won on Friday night between the Eagles and the Wildcats.
Well, if you put me to the gun and making me make a prediction here, I'm not going to go against the home team. I don't think. Again, Dillon's undefeated for a reason. That those kids are really talented, and it might be the difference might be on the offensive and defensive line for these guys. We didn't talk about them a whole lot, but I think that may end up being the difference. Again, the couple of X factors for Beaufort is Bonds and Fields. Can they run wild? But again, I think this Dillon program's hungry. They've been here before. They know what it's all about, even though they have young kids. Like I said, you grew up in Dillon, you know what this is all about. This is not new to you. This is what you play football at Dillon for. This is the reason you play football at Dillon. So I think it's going to be a hard test for Beaufort to go up there and win. Wouldn't be surprised if they did, but again, I think if I got to pick this one, which I did on Prep Red Zone, I gave the advantage to Dillon, just being at home and having that tradition behind them a little bit. I gave them the edge going into this game.
Well, we're very excited to cover this lower state final between the Beaufort Eagles and the Dillon Wildcats Friday night, day after Thanksgiving. It is going to be exciting over there at Dillon. And thank you for Chris Dearing for coming on here today, and looking forward to seeing this ball game on Friday.
All right, thank you, Wes. You have a great Thanksgiving, and like I say, these guys are special to be practice on Thanksgiving morning. So good luck to all the teams across the state this week, and maybe we'll catch up with you next week and do a state championship preview if Beaufort can pull off the win.
That's the hope, and good luck to Beaufort, and good luck to all of these teams playing for right in the state championship game next week. Well, thank you, Chris, once again for coming on. We'll be right back with more here on the Lowco Pigskin Preview.
This podcast is made possible by our sustaining sponsors. Our original sponsor, Mickelson Law Firm, the official real estate attorneys of LowcoSports.com. Go see Ryan and Tiffany and the Mickle Squad for all your legal needs, and support the local businesses that support Lowco. Local Pie, official pizza sponsor of Lowco Sports. They sling the best pies in Bluffton and on Hilton Head, but don't sleep on the mac and cheese.
Hospice Care of the Lowcountry, the official hospice provider of Lowco Sports. For more than 30 years, the committed, compassionate staff at Hospice Care of the Lowcountry has provided a community-based, nonprofit solution to ensure everyone finds comfort, honor, and dignity at the end of life.
Star Home Services, official residential cleaning service of Lowco Sports. Sometimes you just don't want to clean. Call on Carla and her amazing team to do the dirty work at a great price, and tell them Lowco sent you. 843 Sport, the official training center of Lowco Sports. No matter your game, 843 Sport is the place to take it to the next level. They're bringing all the area's top trainers and some of the best elite travel teams from various sports under one roof at 843 Sport. DDS Web Design, the official SEO experts of Lowco Sports. If you have a business and you want to get found, look no further than DDS. They can build an attractive and effective website loaded with all the cutting-edge SEO tools you need to show up where people are looking, on Google. Dave and Denise will get it done. Additional support provided by Cannon Specialty Services, Bluffton Pest Control, Next Move, The Fit Club in Belfairtown Village, and our Patreon members. Join today for $1 or more per month at patreon.com/Lowco Sports to get early or exclusive access to our local sports content and exclusive Lowco swag.
Once again, thanks to all of our sponsors this football season who have helped support our grassroots local sports coverage. We couldn't do this without all of you. What Bryce Lybrand has done these last 4 years as head coach of Beaufort has been nothing short of remarkable. 3 region titles, a state championship appearance in 2021, and now a second straight berth in the lower state final. He's instilled a winning culture at Beaufort High that has continued to raise the bar year after year, and there will be no doubting the chances of this Eagles squad to take it all the way. Let's catch up with Lybrand now with my co-host Dillon Price here on the Lowco Pigskin Preview. All right, Lowco sports fans, we are joined once again by Beaufort High head football coach Bryce Lybrand, who has led his Eagles back to the lower state championship game for the second year in a row, this time in Class 3A, getting ready to head to Dillon on Friday night. Coach, congratulations on another tremendous season. It's an honor to still be playing this week, and tell me about the excitement building over there in Liddy's Island at Beaufort High School.
Yeah, everybody's excited. It's something that a lot of people don't get to do. When you set out the first of the year, everybody wants to be practicing on Thanksgiving. So second year in a row, we're going to get to do it. So that's a big deal. And I think the community's excited, school's excited. So we're just trying to get our preparation in and be ready to go on Friday night.
It's a mark of a solid program when you're still practicing this time of year and on Thanksgiving Day. So a lot to be proud of, and especially for the second time in 2 different classifications. And Coach, I mean, you guys saw 2 very different offensive challenges with Crestwood in round 2 and then Gilbert just this past week and found a way both times. What does that say about the resiliency and the hard work of this group to make adjustments and come up with the plays they need to keep this going?
Yeah, I think it says a lot. Our defense has been really, really good all year. And, I think our defensive staff does a great job, and our kids have played really, really strong all year. And, when you get in the playoffs, you're going to see some really, really great players and, really great coaches. And so that's what we've seen, the past couple of weeks. I think the quarterback and the tight end and the wide receiver at Crestwood were unbelievable players. And then, last week, the 2 backs that Gilbert had were great players. And, both of those staffs did a really good job of kind of having a plan for what we do defensively. So, it's part of playoff football, but just kind of trying to figure out a way to win. And, I think that's the biggest thing is that in those games when we've needed stops to win the game, our defense has gotten the stops. And so, that's a credit to these kids and how hard they play for each other. And it's a credit to the coaching staff for making adjustments when we need to make adjustments.
Yeah, Coach, take me back to that Gilbert game. Gilbert really didn't have that much success in the air. They had it more on the ground. And I seen you kind of got in some 5-man fronts and a little bit of 6-man fronts. Take me through that. Did you think they were doing anything, schematically that y'all haven't seen to get that success on the ground, or was it more just power football?
No, I mean, they just got 2 great backs and they're really well coached. I think that's what it was. You kind of look back at it, and I mean, even stats wise, like when you look at what they did, number 25 is a phenomenal football player. He ended up with like 101 yards, something like that. So, he was kind of chipping away, but they just kind of had long drives, and they were getting, they get it to a 4th down, and then they get the 1st down, and then, so they were just kind of chipping away at it. We're multiple defensively, and that's by design. Coach Garl does a great job of kind of getting everything ready. So, when we need to jump in some different fronts, we can do it. And you just got to see how people are going to play you. Sometimes in the regular season, you'll see a scheme, and it's just like, that's all they're going to do. When you get in the playoffs, that usually doesn't happen against good coaching staffs. They're going to adjust against you, and then you got to adjust to that. And so that's kind of what we've been doing. And luckily, kind of in the second half, we've gotten some opportune stops, and last week got turnover, and so I mean that's kind of the difference in playoff football for you.
Yeah, and it's all about those plays of shock and awe, and then there's one or two or three of them a game that really turned around, and I think there was none bigger than the Colton Ferris kickoff return, which really, I mean, it put you guys ahead, but I think it sparked something on the sidelines. Your defense came out and made a stop. How big was that in terms of the scope of the game to get that huge play from a guy who's been doing it all year long and such an explosive guy to catch on the field and absolutely putting on a show? But what did that return mean for you guys, and just talk about how special Colton has been this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think for one, kickoff returns, punt returns, things like that, big plays in special teams. I think they kind of carry a little bit more momentum than maybe other big plays do in a game. A big run happens, a big pass or an interception. Those are big plays, but it just seems like when a kick gets returned or a kick gets blocked or something like that happens, that you kind of the momentum seems to push even further. And I just think at that point in the game, they had just gone up, they were excited, and then all of a sudden you look and then they're down again after just having this drive to go up. That's a tough thing to deal with from a standpoint that they were in, and and I don't think they wanted to really kick it to Colton or Casey Friday night. I think the moment kind of got to them and they said, hey, we're going to kick it to them because we don't want to give them the ball at the 40 and them have a shorter field, and they kind of made them pay for it. So it's just a great play. Colton's an unbelievable player, and you see all those guys that were blocking for him, and I mean, heck, he ran into one or two of them on that return, and he's hard to bring down. That's that wrestling background, man. You're not going to get the legs on him. It's kind of the wrestling thing, and so he's hard to tackle, and and that kickoff return team did a good job of kind of getting out in front of him. So it was a huge play, and that's what Colton's been doing for us, all year, and hopefully he'll have a couple more special moments this coming Friday.
Yep, and going back on the special teams, I'm a big special teams guy. I've always been like that. You got to win three phases of the game, and special teams is one of them. How does it feel to have a guy like Jack Troutman really stepping up and making some long field goals? I know he had a shorter one against Gilbert, but he had a fairly long one against Crestwood. How does that feel to know that you can send your kicker out there knowing he can make up to some long distances?
Yeah, Jack does a great job for us, and so we have a general idea of where we think we can kick it from, and then we kind of watch him in pregame because wind and things like that, you got to kind of take that into account. So the kicking coaches, Wayne Quinlan and Jeff Abrams, both kind of give me an idea of, hey, he's probably good from X amount of range tonight, and so we just kind of if we feel like we're in that range, we're going to give him a shot, and he's been really good for us. And and so that's another big part of the game. You see a lot of people that kicking wise, they either just don't kick field goals or they put somebody out there that I don't think they have a whole lot of faith in to kick a field goal. We got a ton of faith in Jack to make them, and so he's big. You get to the playoffs, 3 points is huge. 3 points can send you home, and so we feel confident that we can put Jack out there and he can make field goals, and he does a great job for us on punt. And so again, it's all about the three phases. My high school coach used to tell us that more grounds exchanged in the kicking game than any other facet of the game. So you better be good at it. And we've been very fortunate here, especially over the last 2 years. We've been pretty good at the kicking game. So we'll try to keep doing that this week. It'll probably be big again.
Yeah, special teams is certainly an unheralded part of the game, and I think another key piece has been the offensive line, which has been tremendous down the stretch and really throughout that entire region slate as well. Just run me through some of the names of these guys that just haven't gotten the credit they deserve, and just reflect on how important they have been to spark this running game with Casey Fields, with Samari Bonds, with Caleb Ulmer. It starts up front, and just reflect on what those guys have done this year to propel you to this point.
Yeah, it does start up front with them, and so Hart Cushman. We got 3 seniors: Hart Cushman, Justin Weinberg, and Aaron Lamb, and then Adrian Lamb is a junior for us, and then Kenshawn Speaks is a freshman starting for us, and then we kind of throw Michael Dennison in there with him because he does so much in the blocking game, and so he's been really big. And then, Jack Sumner had to come in and play a game, and he played the whole game against Crestwood, offense and defense. Did a great job for us. So, we've had a good group in there, and I think they've kind of gelled as the year's gone along. Logan Powell does a great job with those guys, as our offensive line coach. He's our offensive coordinator, bringing them along. And, they just every week they seem to get a little bit better. And, we see some kind of funky fronts just because of what we do offensively. But, they seem to sort it out pretty good and figure it out. So, a lot of credit goes to them. A lot of credit goes to the coaches to get them ready. And, we'll offensively go as far as those 6 take us, because we're going to need to run the ball to be good.
Yeah, and running the ball has definitely been y'all's identity. It's really been, with Casey Fields having some really big games and going deeper into the playoffs. I've noticed that Samari Bonds and Caleb Ulmer have really been splitting the carries kind of with Casey. Is that just due to, everybody knows Casey's going to touch the ball?
Yeah, a little bit. It's when we're just in the one back with an H back stuff, it's Casey's going to touch it. When we're in the 2 back stuff, it can kind of get spread out a little bit more there. And so it's good. We feel good about putting the ball in Caleb's hands. We feel good about putting the ball in Samari's hands. And Samari's grown up a lot, just making really good reads right now. He's I think there was maybe 1 or 2 that he missed on Friday. But for the amount of reads that he had, that's pretty dang good. So, it's what you want. You want to get better every week. And now we're kind of getting to the point of the year where, we're kind of gelling. And I think those guys understand what we're trying to do. And, we're fairly efficient. And so, it's been good. And we're going to have to be good again on Friday night, if we're going to move on.
We're going up to Dillon, which has been a perennial power in Class 3A, coming in undefeated on the season. Will be a tough test for anyone to go against, and will be a difficult challenge. But you guys have really embraced that underdog mentality. We talked about it last year when you went to Myrtle Beach, came out on top in an absolute thriller. And you guys have just earned that sense of like you understand what it takes to win a big game on the road and big playoff games in general. So tell me kind of how you think you guys might embrace that underdog role and that underdog mentality as you get ready for a game at Dillon to decide the lower state title.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We don't really talk about underdog or being the favorite or whatever. That's stuff for y'all to talk about, and that's fine. That's y'all's job. But we don't really talk about that. We got to win a football game, and we got to find ways to win a football game. And we've got a really good football team. And, when you get in the playoffs, you're going to play other really good football teams. And we got a good coaching staff, and we're going to face a bunch of other really good coaching staffs. And, everybody, when you get to this point, is going to have great players. So, we just approach the game the way we approach the game, whether it's here, whether it's somewhere else. I think that it's about just preparing the way that you prepare and making sure that, you cross those T's and dot those I's and that you're ready to go when the game kicks off on Friday night and that your kids know kind of what they're going to see and what to expect. And, that's just kind of the way we go about our business. It's we treat it like a business trip. And so that's what we're going to have on Friday. And, I'm sure it'll be a great atmosphere and, against a great football team with a bunch of good coaches. And so, we better be ready to go. But yeah, we don't really talk about underdog or favorite or whatever. That's it is what it is. We're a 1 seed just like they are, so we're gonna go play the game and see what happens.
And preparation is definitely key for any facet of the game. But is there a little difference, when you're preparing in the beginning of the season than it is when you're deep into the playoffs? These guys have been at it since January weightlifting. So is there a little bit of lackadaisicalness, or is everybody keyed up, ready to go?
No, not when you get to this point of the year. No, I mean you might fight that a little bit later in the season. Maybe if there's an opponent that on film it's pretty apparent that we're just better than. You might fight that a little bit. This year we haven't really had to deal with a whole lot. Our guys have been pretty locked in the whole year. But no, not when you're playing for a chance to go to a state championship. If somebody's lackadaisical this week, then they don't need to be here. They're locked in, and they know that we're going to play a really good football team, and so they're going give it their best shot and make sure we're prepared and ready to go. So it's no, I don't think you really have to fight that as much as you may just later in the year. Playoffs, generally speaking, they kind of know it's one and done. So they've been pretty locked in that regard.
Well, you guys have had some amazing fan support, especially at home, and they're going to travel well with you guys and make the trip over to Dillon. How special is that to have that entire community rally around you and this team as you guys look to continue what's been yet another incredible run this year? And it's got to be special to see the community have your back in a time like this in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's big. It makes it a hard place to play. I know that people don't like coming down here and playing. Part of that's probably Jason, Jeff, and Darby up in the press box having a good time. But there's a lot of people there. Our students show up and do a great job, and they're excited and have fun. And it's just a fun atmosphere. I'm sure it's not fun for opposing teams, but it's a cool thing, and the community comes out and supports. And so that's a big reason why we've been able to win like we've won. Is being able to have these games at home, and that's why you want to win region championships, is so you can get home playoff games. And so we'll take it. But the community's been great, and they've really supported us, and they support us in a ton of different ways. There's a lot of things that people don't see on Friday nights that people do for us, and paying for pregame meals and buying travel suits and all this stuff that we do, just kind of try to give our kids a first class program. Your community has to do that for you, and they've done that. So very thankful, and hopefully we make them proud.
Yeah, I want to touch a little bit more on your top three main ball carriers with Samari, Caleb, and Casey, and they all have one thing in common. They're physical runners. They're going to lower their shoulders and get a couple more yards. Is that something that's just in them personally, or is that something you kind of try to teach them and coach them up?
No, I mean they that's just kind of part of who they are. I think the way we play is physical. So you kind of have to embrace that if you're going to play for us. When we're in fall camp and kind of early in the season, you're not going to play soft and play for us. So, we're we always want to play physical. We kind of feel like the more physical team's going to win the game most of the time. And so, our kids have just kind of embraced that they got to be physical if they're going to play. And that goes with that running back position too. Casey Fields goes and looks for contact. I mean, that guy, he ain't running out of bounds on anybody. I think it's just kind of a mentality at this point, and that's been kind of carved out over 4 years here since we started this program to kind of get that going. But, we know we need to play physical to win, and our kids do a good job of that, and our coaches do a good job of coaching it. So, I think it's an overall mentality of the program, and then some of it's just who those kids are. They just play physical. So, that's kind of the way we do it.
Yeah, just tell me more about Fields and just the incredible season that he has had in the ground, and just more about his journey, how he's grown into such a sensational football player, and how you've molded him to become the player that he is now, and just him and this entire group of seniors who have just done their job so well throughout this year. But Fields really stands out. Just an awesome story to see him rise to where he is today.
Yeah, I mean, Casey's a kid that started for us for 4 years. He started games at safety for us. He's started games at wide receiver. He started games at running back. He's kind of the kid that whenever we've asked him to do something, he's just said okay and gone and done it. And that's a testament to him and his family for the way they brought him up. But yeah, he's been great. And he runs hard, and he's kind of the heartbeat of this team. And when him and Colton are going, this team feeds off that. So. This whole senior class has been great. They were the ones that kind of changed the culture around here. And, we go from being a program that wins 6 or 7 games to being a program that, wins double-digit games and wins region championships and plays on the semifinal weekend. And, last year was able to make it to a state championship. So, it's that group of seniors that kind of came in that first year with us and bought into what we were doing. And, we're really excited about them getting another week, and hopefully we can go perform on Friday night and maybe get another one. But this senior class has been really special, and this group has been a ton of fun to coach. We just we go out at practice and we laugh and have fun with it, and we're serious too, but there's some jokesters on this team that kind of make you laugh, and you can't help but laugh when they kind of get going. So, it's been a lot of fun to coach them. And so we're just trying to get as much time with them as we can, and the way that you do that is win games. So hopefully we can keep it going.
And so, Coach, you have a challenging opponent with Dillon. They're coming in with 13-0, but I kind of look at y'all guys as undefeated. And you're only one loss came in the first week of the season against a 5A lower state contender, Fort Dorchester. So, is there anything that you've seen on film about Dillon that it's special, or are they just like a really sound football team?
Well, they're really sound for sure, but they're special too. They're really good. They really are. They're a great football team. They they're big up front. They're physical. On both sides of the football. Their offensive line, H-back, running back combo. They're gonna play physical. Left tackles as good looking, a specimen as you're ever going to see in high school football. I mean, he's, and all you got to do is go look at that offer sheet. And there's a lot of people that think that when Georgia offers an offensive lineman, you're good. So he's special, and they're really good on the front seven on defense as well. I think that their running backs or their linebackers really flow to the ball well. And their defensive line's big and physical. Number 5 is a great football player for them on the defensive line. Defensive backs are athletic. So just really all across the board, they're really, really good. They're well coached. They know what they're doing. They know why they're doing it. It's a tough task, but we're going to give it a shot, and got a lot of respect for them. And they've. People don't understand going 13-0 is hard. Winning a bunch and not losing is hard. It really kind of doesn't matter who you're playing. And they played some really good football teams this year. Played Hartsville, played Wilson. Obviously played Camden last week. So for them to come out undefeated through all that, it's pretty significant. So we got a ton of respect for them, and got some really great football players on that team. And it's going to take a good shot from us to win it.
Well, Coach, we're really excited for you guys. You get ready to make the trip up to Dillon and compete against the Wildcats for a spot in the state title game. And just a tremendous season all the way around. And, I think you guys have a great shot of competing and getting this done. I mean, I just look once again at that never quit mentality, falling behind twice in the postseason these last 2 games, and just having that response. When you get knocked down, you get right back up. Just reflect a little bit more on the resiliency and just a never quit effort from this team as you guys get ready to take on Dillon.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just who this team is. I think I think the big thing with this team is, they kind of enjoy being around each other and they'll fight for each other. So, they're not going to quit. They're going to keep scrapping, and they've done that all year. We've been in some precarious situations at times, and they just keep fighting. And we knew that was kind of the team we had week one when we played Fort Dorchester, and and they fought like crazy, and we obviously came up on the wrong side of it, but we kind of knew then that this team could be special because of the way that they fight. And so, we've needed that the past few weeks, and at some point in the playoffs, you are going to need it. And they did a great job. So, yeah, I just think it's just who they are as people. They're great people. And that gives us a great shot at being a great football team.
Yeah, well, from the beginning of the season, playing those bigger schools like Fort D and Goose Creek, this team has been nothing but, fight and effort, really. That's really what it comes down to, is effort and how you play. So we wish you nothing but the best of luck against Dillon, and hopefully we get a Lowco team in the state championship.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, thank you once again to Bryce Lybrand for joining us today, and we'll be right back with more here on the Lowco Pigskin Preview. That'll wrap up this edition of the Lowco Pigskin Preview. We wish the Beaufort Eagles the best of luck as they make their way to Dillon on Friday. Keep a lookout for more coverage on locosports.com. We'll be live with a recap and analysis on Friday night immediately after the game on Lowco Pigskin Live. Thank you to Chris Dearing and Bryce Lybrand for joining us, and as always, we thank you for being a part of it. Until next time, go Lowco.